went to Harlem, and we lived in several addresses in Harlem. I have the addresses, I don't think they're important. And from Harlem we went to the Bronx. From the Bronx we went to Long Island. And in 1940 we came to, 1950 we came to Middletown.
But you came with Helen to Middletown. You didn't come as with...
We were married when I came.
Yeah.
Sure.
We were married 10 years.
Correct. Did you live, where did you first live?
When we got married?
Yes.
In Jamaica.
Oh,
Jamaica?
That
Queens.
was our first apartment. I was in the shoe business and I worked for Miles Shoes. I managed a store in Jamaica.
yeah, my Harriet was born in Jamaica
Really?
at the Kew Gardens Hospital.
And Marty was born in the Bronx,
Is that right?
the Bronx Hospital.
But that's a long story too,
Yeah.
because he went into the service.
When Harry was 8 months old.
Okay, let's pause here for just a second because I want to change the camera angle, kind of. So just, we're going to come back to Bernie, but we just, what you've been
I
able
just
to do,
want- yeah,
you
to
remembered
interrupt
something
to
about your
say-
mom.
Yeah, how many times I said, Mom, what prompted you as a young girl to leave your father, a stepmother, you had brothers, you had half-sisters, to leave that country and come to America?
Now, how old was
Well,
she when she came?
Pardon me?
How old was she when she came?
She was very young.
Yeah.
She was about 14 or 15.
And she came by herself?
That's right. I said, how could you have done that? She said, well, she had long hair in order to make herself look older, piled it up high on her head, and just wanted, things were so bad there, that she just wanted to make a better life for herself. And I guess being so young, you know, you could take perhaps a chance. I said, Mom, I could never have done that. In growing up in our time to leave the house, you know, and go clear across the ocean for another life. But they had a lot of stamina. I think a lot of strength. They had something perhaps that perhaps we were coddled in growing up.
It was a different time.
A different time, right?
Sure. Bernie, going back to you for a minute, you as a youngster, covered a lot of ground. There was a lot of movement. There were the name changes. There was what kind of stable things do you remember? What things? And I don't want to put words in your mouth, but what things do you remember about? What stand out in your mind from when you were a kid?
I had a very rough childhood. Because my stepfather was a son of a bitch if there ever was one. That's the truth.
He's never been known to hold me back.
Sorry, that's the truth. He didn't even like his own son. His wife died when one of his sons was born. And of course I've grown up with these two stepbrothers. One is gone, one died many years ago. And we are as close as if we were real brothers.
Really?
That's my brother, Louis Kaplan. He was a sweetheart of a guy.
Where is he?
He lives in Long Island.
He's younger than you or older?
Yeah, younger, by just a few years.
Uh-huh.
I had lots of jobs. I went to work when I was 9 years old to help support ourselves a little better because my stepfather gave us nothing. He was very mean to my sisters. I remember him cutting the dress of my sisters when she had a date.
Why?
Because he was just rotten and mean. My sisters, when they were going out with fellas, had a fella come to the house, put a bottle of wine on the table. While the fellow was sitting there, the old man took the bottle away. He was something.
They're very good.
I think if the kids complaining today their room isn't big enough. We were 4 boys, slept in one little room in Harlem. And of course, I'll never forget that. When I was 9 years old, I went to work at a drugstore, Harlem Drug Company on 115th Street in
What did you do at 9 years old?
Ran errands and cleaned, did things, went in there right after school.
A delivery boy.
From that, I worked in a dry goods store, which happened to be right across the street, Ed's Bargain Store. And somehow or other, I could never get out of the retail business.
Define dry goods. What is that?
Dry goods is everything like Bob's. Everything ready to wear for men's, women's, children. Underwear, overalls was a big thing in those days. Shirts, socks, you name it, we had it. And I was there a couple of years, and from that I went into, I went to Atlanta for a couple of years where I had a lot of my father's family.
Your real father's family?
Correct. I stayed there for 2 years. I went there for 2 weeks and stayed there for 2 years. I liked it. And I did very well.
What did you do there?
I sold shoes. I got into the shoe business while I was there.
Just so we had the proper perspective, how old were you when you were in Atlanta?
Let me tell you, I've got it exactly. I'm sorry, I got to go to the book.
That's okay. You can look it up, chapter and verse now.
But I've got everything here. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da. I went to Atlanta in 1932. And when I came back, my mother was living in the Bronx. And I took a job at Miles Shoes, and I was with them for quite a long time.
But how old were you when you went to them?
Matter of fact, I was the youngest shoe manager. I think I was 19 years old when I managed the first store for Miles on 14th Street.
Is that right?
I stayed with them for a long time. Went into the Army in 1943. And when I came out, before I went into the Army, I'd also worked in Hempstead for Miles. Matter of fact, I lived there for a couple of years. From Hempstead, I went to Jamaica and managed one of their biggest stores at that time. And they made me a district manager. I was in charge of all of Brooklyn and Staten Island. We got married in 1940. We moved into a beautiful apartment in Jamaica, and we had our Harriet, God love her. And when she was 8 months old, I was called into the Army. I was there for 2 years.
Where did you go?
I went to Fort Dix, and my IQ was so high that they trained me to be a cook. And when I went to Fort Knox, I did the same thing. I liked it. I liked being in the kitchen very much.
Yeah, but you don't cook today.
Hell no. We had our own room that cooks did at the end of the barracks, and that was quite a luxury in those days. The hours were long, but we worked one day, we were off one day. Of course, I was married, but I was going to say I went to town and fooled around because we were off one day, but of course I didn't do that.
And I kept sending salamis and goodies and cakes.
I got out of the Army in 45, and of course my family, my daughter and my wife were living with her mother in the Bronx. And those were rough times for her parents. Believe me, I felt sorry for them.
Why? What do you mean rough? Because of all the kids there?
They had to raise a child all over again at their age, and I wouldn't have the patience at their age. The kid cried all night. My kids weren't angels when they were young, and Harriet was
Well,
rough.
she was a colicky baby. You can't help that. And I mean, and any time he'd come home on furlough, I mean, the family, she was always disrupted somehow or other. I think children feel the way you feel. My sister's husband at that time was also inducted. We had a 4-room apartment. Their mother and father were the greatest. Loved us dearly, loved the child, and it was hard. My sister was going to work. My father was going to work. She cried half a night. It wasn't easy days.
Mm-hmm.
And then a year to the day that I got out of service, we had another child living in the same apartment. That's when Marty was born. September 8th, 1946. I got out of the Army September 8th, 1945. So right to the day, 1 year, we had another child.
And I said, here we are, in an apartment with 2 children. But we were lucky. We had some money with, in Flushing, I think we paid $100 with the association to get an apartment. All furniture was in storage. All I had was baby's crib and the dressing table, and whatever he sent certainly wasn't enough to pay the storage bill. But living with Mother and Dad, I was able to manage.
That was good. Let's back up a second. You were married in 1940. Just from both sides, how did you meet? How did you hear about each other?
Skipped that I wanted to get.
See, that's one of the advantages of this. Is we can go back. We can go back as many times as we like.
Is this on now?
You betcha.
I was trying to forget how I met her. My stinking brother-in-law, this is a blind date, introduced us, And that's actually what happened. I met her on Valentine's Day.
You were my
in
blind date.
1938.
Now, what was it like? So your brother-in-law
Was
made the
show
arrangements.
I
Now, how did he know her?
that
She worked with him at AS.
I worked A.S. Beck on 34th Street.
You worked where?
A.S. Beck on 34th Street.
A.S. Beck. That's
A.S. Beck.
Selling hosiery and bags,
yeah.
right?
Okay.
And they were going to have a big affair. I forget now what the tickets were, but I wasn't a rich girl. I mean,
She was cheap even then.
no, I wasn't cheap. I couldn't, what was the tickets? $50 or something like that. So this fellow who worked with me in the store, Jack Brill, he said, well, he'll buy the other half of the ticket and he'll bring his brother-in-law.
Which I paid for.
When the evening came for the affair, my brother-in-law came up. I didn't see him. He was sitting in the car. And I said, well, looks like a nice fellow. I don't know, but we had a wonderful evening, and that's how we met.
So what happened after that? I mean, you met. What kind of an affair was it?
This was at a nightclub on Broadway.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, I think they
It
called
was,
it the Hollywood, if I remember correctly. And I, like a Jake who fooled around and lived around for all my years, the night I met her, I told her that eventually we'd get married.
You told her that the first
I
night?
got sucked in there immediately.
I did not believe you.
Why did you tell her that the first night?
You wanted a date the following week. I said I was sorry, but I had a date. But you tried hard.
Well, what happened? I mean, how long did it take him to get the second date?
Maybe a couple of weeks. Couple of weeks. And we were driving by,
Didn't get the second
and
base
a
until I
friend
married
of
her.
a friend of yours hunked in the car, and you said, that's the girl I'm going to marry.
I was stupid in those days.
True.
Oh, so you knew it right away.
More or less, yes.
Well, what was your reaction to him then right away?
Well, I thought he was a nice fella.
How
He
could
had
she
a good
resist me?
job. He had an Oldsmobile. He had a car at the time. And my mother said to me, I don't know, he looks much older than you.
34, not everybody had a car.
You know?
I had a brand new
Right.
Oldsmobile that cost
He
me
had that big handle
$996.
mustache, and he wore a derby. And my mother thought he was an older fella.
No, wait. You were married in 1940. You met in 1939.
38.
38.
38.
Got
We went
engaged in
together 2
39.
years.
Okay, so
Everything
it was
happened
so it was a
on
2-year
Valentine's
courtship,
Day. Right.
That's right.
and you had an Oldsmobile in 38.
30, right.
Yeah.
That was
That's
a
right.
34 Oldsmobile.
That's right.
Okay.
Right, and if he had a night off, he'd pick me up downtown at the shoe store, and we would go out.
Did you think he had money?
I don't know, but you know, my family thought maybe this was a rich fella.
They fooled.
Here, who
They
who
fooled.
had a car in those days?
I owed
Right.
money when we got married.
He was a district manager. He was a young fellow. They thought so, but I knew differently when we got married.
But
Because
actually we met in
he was
38.
in debt a little bit.
A little bit?
He played the stock market. He played our margin. And he owed money. But I didn't know that. I mean, we got married and had this beautiful apartment that was in Jamaica. It was a high-rise. It was a beautiful 3.5-room apartment. And we were very happy until he got notice.
But Bern, why did they take you into the service
He
when
already
you,
had a child.
when you already had a child?
That's
They
right.
did that.
That's right.
So there
They
was
were
no
taking
deferment for
men
that.
Remember that
With a
we
child
went,
at
we
the
went, we
time.
went into the war in 41.
Mhm.
41, this was 2 years later, so they ran out of, they started grabbing some people with kids. And Harry was 8 months old, everything went, it was a rough time.
Right.
Everything
That's-
went into storage. And we moved to the...
And my sister and I were writing letters every night. When you came home, Harry was about 3 years of age. He didn't know when she got a tooth. He didn't know when she walked. He didn't know just what I had been writing to him.
But Bernie, you were not overseas.